Way better than the 4% rule. Isn't that right, puppies? Look, you got one puppy right there. Lazy Oh, so handsome. Yes, sir. Then we got another puppy right there. Oh, so handsome. Give me a thumbs up for the puppies. Hey, Fanny. What's up, bud? Oh, okay. Anyway, so every morning I go to some coffee place to work on my book. This one's going to be crushing. I forgot yesterday when I was talking about my books. I forgot my other book, Relax and Retire. Anyway, I don't have it with me. But anyway, so don't forget to buy that book as well. Do I have it on the shelf? I can't tell. Anyway, so let me show you something here. So we're going to go into, this is what I'm working on here. We're going to do S&P 500, the 4% rule. No cash, no nothing. This is just the S&P 500, all right? The 4% rule, i.e. we're taking 4% a year, adjusting it with inflation. All right, everybody with me on that so far? And so what we're going to do is we're going to go to this spreadsheet. I got so much detail. Look, dude, if you're a spreadsheet guy like me, you got spreadsheets coming out your behind. You're freaking coming up to your everywhere. You got spreadsheets and spreadsheets. So I'm going to show you here is we're going to come down here. May the Lord go right here. So in 1900, if you retired in 1900, we got 30 years, all right, so 1900 and 1929. You had 1 million bones in the S&P 500. You're taking 4% a year out. All right, you can see you're starting with $4,480, all right? This is at the end of the first year. In 1900, you start with $1 million. The market, you're taking 8% of the previous year's balance out. So at the end of this year, 8% of the market went up in 1900. How much did it go up here? Let's take a gander. Market went S&P 500 went up 20.8% in 1900. All right, so basically what's happening here is you take your $1 million, you times by 20%, you're taking 8% of that, which is $96,000. All right. As you can see, this is the 8% of the previous year's amount. 8% of the previous year's amount. So the market goes up, you get a bonus. The market goes down, you got to give yourself a pay cut. But we're more than 2 times above the 4% rule. This is just in 1900. And you can see it went from 96 to 106 to 105 to 80. Pretty significant drop there from 105 to 80. That's still almost twice what the 4% rule adjusted with inflation gave us. All right. Oh, but there was no inflation under the gold standard. There was inflation under the gold standard. Look, this is inflation. I mean, not much, but 4.4 in 1907. People were griping about it because previous to that, we had massive deflation. So even like a 2 and 3 before 4% inflation was problematic to people. Anyway, so let's keep going because they weren't used to it. What was I doing here? I'm showing you here. So you can see by the end of 1907, we were still spending $70,000 a year with the 8% rule, if you will, versus only $45,000 with a 4% adjusted with inflation. Fast forward to we'll just pick 1916, still spending $74,000 a year, which is the 4% rule is $52,000. We'll fast forward to 1922. Now the 4% rule has surpassed us. So we're spending $63,000, but we're 23 years into retirement here. So we're spending $63,000 here, but the 4% rule is spending $81,000. All right. We go to our last year, and you can see the 4% rule in 1928, we're only spending $82,000, and there's no inflation in 1929. Whereas the 8% rule, if you will, is spending $146. So we had a couple of years there where the 4% rule surpassed us, but then because of good market conditions, the 8% rule destroyed it. So if we take our trusted calculator, we go to sum, let's sum these guys up. You can see, let's go over here too. With a 4% rule, we took out $1.827 million in total expenditures, but with my 8% rule, we spent $700,000 more than that. All right, not too shabby. So now what we're going to do is we're going to come up here and see how much we had left over when we went to our greater reward. We're going to go up here. Let me just pause it real quick. What we're going to do is we're going to use Daniel Colbert's 55e.co. 55e.co. What year am I starting this? In 1900, I think, is when I started. 1900. All right, and we're going to show you if we do reverse RMD, we had left over at the end of 1929, right there. We had 1.398 million right there left. That's the reverse RMDs, 1.398 million. If we do the 4% rule, inflation adjusted 4%. I forgot what I just said. 1.389, is that what I just said? The 4% rule at the end of 1929, we had 7.38 million left. I mean, don't do that, man. Just don't do that. Anyway, so let's keep going. The same 1910 to 1939. Look, the 4% rule, you can see, jumped and it fell because we had deflation going into here. All right, then we had massive increase right there. The 8% rule is the S&P 500, 8% the previous year. Massive jump up, so you can see, zhoops. Then it fell because the markets just got destroyed in 1930, 31, and 32. But even there, we still, in 1910 to 1939, we still started with more, taking out more money. It's the whole point. We're starting taking out more money. Yes, you might have to reduce your expenses at some point in the future. 1920, the 8% rule, the 4% rule never touched us. The 8% rule did much better. 1920, which includes the deflation years of the 1930s. And we took massive spending reduction, but we're still above the 4% rule at 1930. Basically hand in hand. 4% rule at 1930, 1959. The 4% rule and the 8% rule kind of fell hand in hand there. But again, on the front end of retirement, we're spending more in the 8% rule. 1940. Look, 8% rule is in red again. The 4% rule never touched it. 1950. 8% rule is in red again. The 4% rule never touched it. 1960. This is like perfect right here. We're spending a lot more money in the front end, and then the 4% rule overtook us about 1974, 73 or something like that. But we're still going up, You see what I'm saying? So yeah, we spent a lot more money here, and then the 4% rule spent a lot more money here. But this is a perfect scenario of what is it that you want to do. Do you want to spend more money in this time or spend more money in that time? Well, we want to spend more money here because there's no guarantee we're going to even live 30 years. 1970, basically 4% rule and the 8% rule kept up. And then in the latter part of the 1990s, we had a massive jump because the markets went crazy. 1980. 4% rule didn't even come close to 8% rule. 1990, 4% rule didn't come close to 8% rule. 2000 and 2023, the 4% rule did better here, but this is only 2023. It doesn't include 2024, which have another jump up there. Anyway, that's just from those decades. So we got 10 years right there, just starting in the decades. But I mean, look, I've done every single scenario that you can possibly imagine. 8%, 1930, 1931, 1932. 1950, 1951, 1952, 1953, 54, 55, and on, I mean, just the vast majority of the time, the 8% rules not only beat the 4% rule in terms of how much more we're spending, but it smoked it. And a lot of times, not only does smoke in terms of how much we're spending, it smoked at how much we're leaving behind as well. Not all the time. 4% rule, the drawback about the 4% rule is you're limiting your spending on the front end, which means you're leaving more money behind. And again, there's other ways. If you want to leave a bunch of money, just buy life insurance, a second die life insurance if you're married with a limited cash value. That's what you want to do. And I've talked about that before. Maybe I'll talk about it again. It doesn't get a whole lot of views because everyone, I hate life insurance. But you can say, look, I can buy a second die life insurance, cost me, freaking $500 a month for, I don't know, $500,000 policy. I don't know. And $500 a month, I guarantee that when I die, my children have $500,000 from a life insurance component that they can get tax free. Second to die means it doesn't pay until the second person dies. So I die first, it doesn't pay out. It only pays out when Charlotte dies. I'm a big fan of that. That's a more of an efficient way to leave money, by the way, because it's all tax free. And you know for a fact, if I pay this, I will get that. That's literally how these things go. Limited cash value, guarantee, second die life insurance. The earlier you die, the better the rate of return is on the life insurance, by the way, because the less you have to pay into it, and it's still the same amount of money that they're getting. Anyway, and this is what I'm working on right here, because it's just like, dude, I'm running these numbers everywhere. What I'm going to do next, I forgot to say. Now, the only drawback is these massive ups and downs, all right? Massive ups and downs. So the question is, I wonder if I can eliminate some of those massive up and downs, or at least minimize those, flatten the curve, if you will. I wonder if I can flatten the curve with 2 weeks to stop the spread. Flatten the curve by using Wellesley, which only started in 1970, or Wellington, which started in 1930. That's what I'm going to do next. Anyway, big fan, long time, and I cannot wait to get this done because it's crushing. It's a legendary book that everyone should buy. All right, God bless. We'll see you.